He saw his own death in a dream. He saw the exact place. He knew the exact time. And he saw the face of the man who would do it. He woke up in a cold sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs, and tried to forget. He told himself it was just a nightmare, a trick of the mind. But then everything started happening, piece by piece, exactly as he had seen it. Before we dive into this chilling story, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Twisted tales like this deserve to be heard, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. It was 3:17 a.m. when his eyes flew open. The digital clock on his nightstand glowed with those damning numbers he'd never forget. He was drenched in sweat, the sheets tangled around his legs like restraints. The dream was so vivid, so real, he could still feel the phantom sensations on his skin. In the dream, he was standing on the old iron bridge that crossed the river on the edge of town, the one nobody really used anymore. The air was cold, damp, and smelled of rust and whetstone. A man had approached him out of the mist, his steps silent on the grated metal. The man said nothing, not a single word. His presence was a void, a chilling emptiness. Then, with a sudden, brutal force, he pushed him. He remembered the sickening lurch in his stomach, the brief, weightless moment of falling. He saw the dark, churning water rushing up to meet him. He felt the bone-jarring impact, the icy shock that stole his breath. And then he woke up. He sat there for a long time, the echo of the fall reverberating through his body, trying to convince himself it was nothing, just a bad dream. The next day, he tried to shake it off. He went about his routine, forcing a sense of normalcy he didn't feel. But a strange compulsion, a morbid curiosity, led him on his drive home. He took the old river road, the one that led to the bridge from his dream. As he approached, his hands grew slick on the steering wheel. The sky was the same bruised purple as in his nightmare. A thin mist was rising from the water. He pulled over, his car idling, and stared at the bridge. It was exactly as he'd seen it. The rusted railings, the peeling paint. A clock on a distant church tower chimed the hour, the same time. He got out of his car, his feet feeling like lead. He walked to the center of the bridge, to the very spot where he had stood. He stopped. He looked around, his senses on high alert. There was no one. The only sound was the gentle lapping of the river below. But he couldn't shake the feeling, the prickling on the back of his neck, the undeniable sensation that he was being watched. He quickly got back in his car and sped away, not looking back. That night, sleep offered no escape. He dreamed again. The same bridge, the same cold air, the same silent man. The same push, but this time just before he was sent plummeting towards the water. The man turned his head slightly, and in the sliver of moonlight, he saw his face. It was an ordinary face, one you could pass on the street 1,000 times and never notice. But now it was burned into his memory. The pale eyes, the thin scar above his left eyebrow. He woke up, screaming. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and sleeplessness. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every stranger's face was a potential suspect. He started avoiding people, isolating himself in his apartment, drawing the curtains and double-checking the locks. The dream was a constant, unwelcome visitor, playing on a loop in his exhausted mind. A week after it all began, he ran out of coffee. A mundane problem, but one that forced him out into the world. He went to a small cafe downtown, a place he'd never been before, hoping the anonymity would bring some comfort. He ordered his drink and stood by the counter, waiting. And then he saw him, sitting at a small table in the corner, nursing a cup of black coffee. It was the man from his dream. The same worn tweed coat, the same vacant, pale eyes, the same faint scar above his eyebrow. Time seemed to slow down. The clatter of the cafe, the smell of espresso, it all faded into the background. His heart felt like it was going to explode. He was frozen to the spot, unable to move, unable to breathe. The man looked up, as if sensing his stare. Their eyes met across the room. And then the man did something that shattered his world completely. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that didn't reach his eyes, and in a low voice that carried across the room with chilling clarity. He said, "You're early." Panic, pure and primal, took over. He dropped his wallet, turned, and ran. He burst out of the cafe and didn't stop running, not until his lungs were on fire and his legs gave out. He didn't sleep for days after that, terrified of what he'd see if he closed his eyes. He couldn't live like this. The fear was a poison, seeping into every corner of his life. He was a ghost in his own existence, haunted by a future that felt terrifyingly inevitable. He had to end it. He had to face it. On the 7th day, the anniversary of the first dream, he found a strange resolve hardening within him. He drove back to the bridge. It was dusk. The sky was a canvas of orange and deep blue. He walked to the center, his heart a steady drum against his ribs. He wasn't running anymore. He waited, and sure enough, a figure emerged from the evening shadows. It was him, the man from the dream, from the cafe. He walked towards him, his footsteps echoing in the quiet air. He stopped just a few feet away. Our protagonist braced himself for the push, for the fall, for the end he had foreseen. But the man just stood there, looking at him. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. Finally, the man spoke, his voice calm, almost disappointed. You changed the ending. He looked not at him, but past him towards the far side of the bridge. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing back into the shadows from which he came. He never saw the man again. He never had the dream again. He was left alone on the bridge with the questions, the quiet river, and the profound, unsettling mystery of what he had just survived. He hadn't just escaped his fate. It seemed he had rewritten it. Some stories stay with you long after they're over, blurring the line between what's real and what's not. Every Friday, we tell twisted tales just like this one. If you enjoy diving into the unknown, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you daren't miss Monday's story. She survived the impossible. It's a tale of resilience that will defy everything you think you know about human limits. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.